60 pounds underweight. I almost died this week already and had my life saved at the hospital. I have nowhere to live anymore. I've sold all my possessions. None of this is fun or glamorous, or am I enjoying any of this at this point. You can see the bondage, like you can see the sickness. And I have this moment where I'm like, I can't die. And I started talking to God. I did not overcome my struggle. I did not try harder. God saved me.
Pastor Zach, thank you very much for agreeing to join me on the show. We already have had a lot of good conversation that sadly didn't make it on camera already.
We're warmed up.
But yeah, I appreciate you being willing to join me and share some of your stories, some of the things you've learned over the years, and just what you're passionate for, what you have a heart for. So do you want to give a quick introduction to who you are for anyone that doesn't know you already? Or
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm super glad to be here, honored. I've seen what you've been doing for a while with this, and I think it's incredible. So I'm glad to be here. Yeah, Zach Zedar, and I work here at Canvas Church as a pastor of our university campus, our second campus, our second location. But I've done a lot of different things here over the years, and I've been coming here for a long time. We can get into that, I'm sure. But my ministry before I ever even worked at the church has always been helping people who struggle with chronic severe addiction, specifically substance addiction, because that is something that about killed me, and God saved me from that through a series of events. And so oftentimes he calls us back into the fires, that he pulled us from, to show others the way and to point them towards him.
Is it tough to go back and to see the people who are in like a similar state to where you were, and to like be around the things that...
Yes and no. It hurts me, and I see it differently probably than people that have never struggled with that, because I understand it. And I actually see that, and it's very humbling, because I'm like, that not only could that be me, but that was me. And I know what that looks like to other people. Good Lord, what is wrong with that guy? What is he doing? Why is he acting? Does he care? What, all of those things, don't want him anywhere around me, all that kind of stuff. But I know what that's like. And, it's like anything, you can't understand it unless you've experienced it, like so many things. But also it helps me. It's one of the most, if not the single most powerful action that I can take to continue with my sobriety, is to go back into those places regularly, and help as many of those people as I possibly can.
Yeah, a lot of people who've gone through even like traumatic things, like the thought of going back sends them into like the panic spiral or whatever. So it's like, I think it'll be inspiring to hear, for people to hear you, going back into that situation and just, being willing to do something about it. I think that's inspiring in of itself. But when did you start going to Canvas? I don't think I've ever asked you, like, when.
So it was 2010, and the church started in 2008.
Yeah. Early days.
Yeah. I got invited. The people that I ended up bringing me were going at the second location at the elementary school in the auditorium.
Yeah.
And I've always been upset that I didn't go with them right when they invited me, because not long after that we moved to the cafeteria. Yeah. And when I went, we had just moved into the cafeteria.
Those were the difficult days, right? Or like the ones that were more work, I suppose.
Yeah. And honestly, I wasn't like as involved. I got more and more involved in the church and volunteering and doing Man of Honor and doing helping out with things. But I started just as a regular attender and a super inviter, I guess you could say. I started trying to bring as many people with me as I possibly could. And I was like, well, I can't volunteer. I've got all these people with me. I got to bring them home afterwards too. But there's always a way to do more,
Yeah. Well, how big of a problem, if we kind of, set the scene a little bit, like how big of a problem is addiction in our cities and the modern USA or Western world? Because I don't feel like we're exposed to it all that much, other than like walking past people on the street sometimes, or
Mm-hmm.
like it's almost just in the shadows of like regular day to day
Mm-hmm.
life. But there's probably so much going on. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it all. Like there's so many things going on that no one would know about unless
Yeah.
you've been there.
There's different. There's actually like different classifications, right? So like in general, drugs and alcohol, which are the same thing, and we can get into that later. It's what's legal and what's socially acceptable, but substances that intoxicate you. And yeah, when it was illegal in this country, they sold alcohol
Yeah.
out of the back of trucks on pallets, like kilos of cocaine
Yeah.
with Tommy guns, and they were drug dealers.
Yeah.
And if alcohol was illegal now and at the trap house for $200 a bottle,
Yeah.
it would be the
People
same
would be
thing.
doing it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but anyways, it's a huge issue. I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me for this particular thing, but a massive percentage of people that get arrested, whether they're actually addicts and alcoholics or not, were intoxicated while they were doing domestic violence or robbing a store or in a car accident
Yeah.
or getting money to get those things or, acting crazy, running down the street with their clothes off, whatever it was,
Yeah.
probably weren't not sober.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, getting in fights outside of football
Yeah.
games, like all this kind of stuff, right? So it's a
Right,
huge
yeah.
thing. But as far as like addiction and alcoholism, there's this classification we call like problem users, right? Like maybe people who are maladjusted to life or fighting some other comorbidity of anxiety
Yeah.
or trauma or loss
Yeah.
or they just really like it. They don't know how to socialize without it.
Mm-hmm.
Their favorite thing to do is, I always say, and drinks. There's this group
Oh,
of
yeah,
people.
sure.
They're not alcoholics,
Yeah.
but hey, let's go out and have drinks. Let's go
Mhm.
watch the game and have drinks. Let's go to the
Yeah.
beach and have drinks. Like they don't know what to do if they don't have drinks.
Well, it's so funny because when I started working, like my first proper job, this is probably, it shows how, I guess, naive I was, but an older lady in the office was talking about going home and drinking a bottle of wine, like
Yeah.
to herself.
Yeah.
And to me, that like blew my mind. I was like, so people go home most days sometimes and just drink a bottle of wine as in their bottle, and then their spouse has their own bottle.
Yeah.
But that shows naivety, because I'm like, there's people who do a lot worse than that every day, but it's
For sure.
that I was not sort of exposed to how much of a crutch it can be for some people.
Yeah, and so this group of people that I'm talking about, like, they're not alcoholics. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with having a drink or two or whatever, but I'm just saying that they sometimes almost look like alcoholics to people that don't understand like the bondage that you can be in, right?
Okay.
They don't really have the classifications of an alcoholic, but they drink too much.
Okay.
And regularly, and they enjoy it, and they would miss it if they didn't have it. But if a doctor said, dude, you got pancreatitis, or your esophagus is getting ready to fall out, or your liver is shot, and or their spouse was going to leave them because they're drinking too much, or
if push came to shove.
Yeah, if push came to shove, like for real, they could put that aside if need be.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the chronic or severe alcoholic addict. And so that group that I just described, substance abuse disorder, that or substance misuse disorder that might be classified like in the medical world, that can be like 16-17% of the population of people that fall under both of these umbrellas. Now you have the people that are like chronically, severely, hopelessly addicted. And that is like, I don't know, maybe 1 to 9%. I know that's a vast like range there,
Right.
but I've seen different studies that say probably more like 2 to 5% of people that reach this place where they're like the most sincere, honest, strong desire to change and pull themselves away from these things. They're not enjoying it anymore. They're losing everything that they care about. But they always seem to return. And, and sometimes they lose the battle, to death. But, so that's not a massive percentage, but even if you're saying 5 to 10% of the population, like those are big numbers.
Yeah.
Those are big numbers.
Millions of people.
Millions of people, So most of the time, if you go into a crowd and you say, not at like an addiction seminar or something, but just a normal crowd of people, if they were to be honest and you'd say like, who in here has or is struggling with serious like a substance addiction issues, and they were to actually be honest, you would get a speckling of a few hands. But then if you were to say, or knows someone who has, like your friend's uncle or your sister or your buddy's dad or something like that, you're going to get like maybe almost half the room.
Yeah.
So it affects people big time. It's a huge issue.
Yeah. So what do you think it was that, to go maybe a little bit into your story, just a touch, like, so what for you was the attraction or allure in the first instance? Like what appeals to people about, because obviously there's social drinking and stuff like that. I guess we're accustomed to getting sort of dabbling in some drinks even from a young age.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, even like, I think in my experience, people tend to have this kind of, or at least when you're younger, you have this sort of thing of like, okay, I've tried this, let's try something a little stronger, and kind of steps up. Because that's certainly how my friends growing up probably would have experienced it. It would have been alcohol first or a cigarette, and then next thing they're trying a little bit of weed, and the next thing it's, MDMA or something. Yeah, cocaine.
Cocaine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious about like the mental state of that. Is it just, trying to get the next sort of hit or what?
Well, that's very normal, because also like people are, this stuff is taboo to most people until it's not, until it becomes normal. And that's usually like a progressive journey, right? You're not going to go from like this kid that's never seen or used drugs to just like heroin in a weird van with some guys you met on the side of the road, like instantly, usually. But everybody starts. Here's the thing. It doesn't really matter why you start. It's interesting, and I'll tell you why I started.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't matter if you started because you experienced something awful or because you were peer pressured or because you were genuinely curious, or if you started to mask some pain in your life or because you were going through something or because of how you were raised. Like those things are legitimate and deserve focus. And there's therapy that can be done for people that have, if they use because of how they were raised or because they, experienced something horrific or traumatizing, or they experience great loss. Like that's very real and it sort of parallels this thing.
Yeah.
But there are people in the world who have experienced the most unspeakable, horrific traumas that you could ever even talk about, right? And they've been exposed to drugs and alcohol and have not become addicts. So the equation that just like trauma plus drugs equals addict, not necessarily. And then there are people on the other side of the spectrum, me being one of them, really, I had a great family, not perfect.
Yeah.
Did something weird happen to me when I was 2, 3, 4 that I don't really remember or something? Who knows? Is there some little subconscious nugget in the middle of my mind or something? But trauma happens to everybody on some level, like things are traumatizing to you because they've never happened, or it's the craziest thing you've ever seen, or you were scared, or it's a response. Like life happens. Yeah. Eventually you lose people, you have like a near-death experience, like something's gonna happen to you if you live long enough, but yeah, I wasn't abused. I wasn't made fun of. I had friends. I had a little bit of ADHD. I was a little bit of a class clown. Do you remember the movies called the Jackass movies? Like I like to do stuff like that when I was a kid. I like to jump off of bridges and get crazy and have fun and stuff. But I actually thought that drugs were lame when I first started seeing them. I saw kids in like middle school, 12, 13, 14 years old. I remember seeing kids like, smoking some weed, drinking. I went to like a party one time and held onto a beer for like 3 hours and took a couple sips to pretend I was drinking it when I was like 12 or 13. But I never really caught a buzz, right?
Yeah.
And so we moved to Florida from Virginia right after 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I started high school in Florida, in Flagler Beach. And the first year that I got here, I got straight A's. I went home after school every day. I ate dinner with my family. I played sports. I played an instrument. I liked having fun. I still thought drugs were lame. And again, wasn't exposed to this stuff, didn't have any horrible trauma going on. I wasn't like depressed or bullied or anything. I was just having a blast and living life, right? Even going to church with my family. And then in 10th grade, my buddy's parents went out of town, and we went over to his house and lied, and we decided to have a little party, and a Halloween party. And it got completely out of control. I mean, we're like 15, 16 years old. And by the end of it, there's like people in their 40s there. There's like hundreds of people there. You know, it was complete mayhem and chaos. And that night, I got drunk. I got high in multiple different ways. I skipped a few steps of your progression timeline there. Like I'm in the bathroom snorting 2 different things. I don't know what it is. Jumping in a car with these guys, smoking some weed, getting drunk. And then I ran from the police. They came, they shut the party down, and then I came back, and later that night, I lost my virginity. And none of that was planned. But to be honest with you, I thought that was awesome. It was the best night of my life.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess objectively on paper, certainly to someone who's not of the Christian worldview, that most people would think that's a pretty.
I had fun. I had fun.
Right.
You know, I thought it was amazing.
But that's crazy that it's just something unlocked and it went from like 0 to 100. You know?
Yes, and so immediately I thought, I want to do this every second of every day for the rest of my life. Like what, you know, why would I not? If you can feel like that by doing that, why would I not? And
like a dopamine overload or something?
Brother, I was preloaded, and it just set it on fire. It set the fuse. And I did not realize at the time that on my dad's side of the family, I have older sisters who are all half sisters, right? One of my sisters, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, passed away from a heroin overdose. Another one is in recovery now for 5 or 6 years. And another one is struggling severely, you know, with alcoholism. And I didn't realize that my dad's brother was an alcoholic, all my sisters, that his mom was a really bad addict. His dad was an alcoholic. All of his aunts and uncles immigrated here from Ireland and Slovenia. And he was half Slovenian, half Irish. From people that literally moved here from those countries, you know.
But you weren't exposed to that growing up?
I wasn't exposed to that growing up.
Yeah,
and my dad is sort of the only one, or was sort of the only one in that whole side of the family that didn't really drink alcoholically. Now, later in his life, he did have some issues with that. But, I mean, he maintained a career in the Army, a career in real estate, exercise, getting up early in the morning. And as a kid, it wasn't like, oh, my dad's over drunk on the couch again. He might have a couple of beers watching a football game or Seinfeld or something.
Right, but it wasn't a huge, like, crippling...
No, I in no way felt like I was raised by alcoholic parents or anything like that.
But I guess that brings up the conversation of, is it a genetic thing or a spiritual thing? Like, what causes that predisposition? And you know, I'm sure there's a lot of opinions on. People will say, well, maybe it's like a generational kind of spiritual thing, or maybe it's there's something in your DNA that predisposes you. Like, what do you think of that?
I would say yes, both. You know, I mean, really, I think obviously it's a tool, a powerful, widespread tool of the enemy. I mean, if you were a hunter, and you found something that felt good, you'd have your prey right where you wanted them. You know, I mean, it's just like the perfect segue, the perfect lure. I mean, it makes you feel euphoria. It makes you feel incredible until it turns on you and destroys you. You know what I mean? But so there is for sure a physical component, a mental component, and a spiritual component.
Okay.
Could it be generational curses and stuff? Absolutely. Could part of that be a physical thing tied into our DNA. God could do that. Science explains God, not the other way. Like it's just sort of like, it just shows you why and how what's happening is happening. So none of the new studies that come out really like change the reality of the condition. It just explains it deeper, So there's a physical piece that is thought to be highly genetic. And you see this in family lines, you see this in certain people groups. But it doesn't mean that everything about me and my makeup is genetic on some sort. Like
of course,
how tall you are, how short you are, the color of your eyes, whether you like tomatoes or think they're disgusting. Even if both of your parents are short and you're super tall, it's
That's
somehow
kind of me. My parents aren't super short, but they're pretty short. And then me and my brother are both 6'1".
So it's in your genetics, like you can,
in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere, whether you're like, well, it didn't come from your parents. Well, it got passed down through something, you know what I mean? And so, the physical piece is just this. And this is what differentiates people that get exposed to it versus regardless of why they turned to it or why they leaned on it or why they landed on it versus like people that get addicted and people that don't, right? Is two things. One, I loved it. I didn't expect to.
Yeah.
Like I was skeptical. I told you I thought drugs were lame. I didn't understand it. I'm like, who are these losers?
So you love the physical sensation?
I love the physical sensation. And I didn't expect to. And there are people, so like I know people that smoke weed and it gets them all paranoid and they don't like how it makes them feel. And they're like, I'd rather not ever do that again. And then there are some people that are like, brother, this is...
Yeah, they're seeing the space elves
right
and stuff.
Where it's at. I would like to just maintain this at all times. Yeah. My dad, he would have like a hip surgery or a knee surgery. They'd give him pain pills, right? He would take them for a couple of days, as few a days as possible, and then flush them down the toilet because he said, I don't like how those things make me feel. Well, I was searching the dark web in 2009 for like a weird doctor that would remove my non-vital organs for money.
You were?
Yes. So because that's how much I like that sensation. So what I'm saying is my dad and I are having a very different experience with how those exact pills make you feel.
Yeah.
He says, I feel like I'm out at sea and need to get to land.
Oh, I thought you meant that he was flushing them because he didn't like the way it made him feel, as in it was a really good feeling and he was scared of it?
No, he just doesn't enjoy the buzz.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't, it's not a buzz to
whereas
him.
you couldn't get enough.
Whereas I couldn't get enough.
Yeah.
So, and it's the same with a lot of different things. So the first part of the physical thing is I loved it. I loved alcohol. I loved opiates. I loved cocaine. I loved marijuana. Some people prefer a particular substance. They really don't like these as much, and they find one that I like that one. You know what I mean?
All very different sensations.
And this is physical. This part of it is physical. Like you like tomatoes or you don't, or you enjoy a nice massage, or it's ticklish and you just don't care for it.
Or like people say cilantro tastes like soap.
Yes, that's what stuff like that. Yeah. It's really that simple. Like you don't need to like dive all into it and psychoanalyze it. It's very simple, right?
Preference.
Yeah, and then the second component of the physical part is this abnormal reaction that they call a craving. And I don't mean a craving like a desire to do it. I mean like what happens once I put it in me. And this is something that if you don't experience it, you will never understand it. Right. And that's okay. You know, there's a lot of things like that other people experience that I haven't been through that. I haven't experienced that. I don't understand that.
Yeah. And that's probably for the best,
Probably for the best. But so let's put it this way. If you really like beer, 2 or 3 beers would be better than none, right? Because you like them and you would prefer to have some, and that would be better than not having any. But if you have a physical reaction to beer, 2 or 3 beers might be the plan when I start, but that better equal as much beer as I want and probably a trip to the ATM and to pick up some drugs, or we're going to have a problem. Because like, it doesn't matter if I'm happy or sad, angry or lonely, thinking of the most horrible things that have ever happened to me, or having a wonderful day and partying Tuesday morning or Friday night payday. Like when I put it in me, whatever my plan was, all right, we're going to chill out tonight. I don't want to act like I did last week. That was embarrassing. It was horrible. I scared some people.
You don't want to go to the emergency room.
I don't want to go to the emergency room. I don't want to get kicked out of my friend's house. I don't want to spend all my money. I don't want to say those horrible things or whatever it is. So we're going to just keep it chill. We're just going to have a couple beers. I can't tell you how many times I said I'm just going to have a couple beers was the start of like one of the craziest experiences for me and anybody around me.
So it just takes over to where like once you have one, you can't get enough.
It explodes. Yeah. And you basically drink or use until the craving is satisfied, not until the plan you put in place. So
that's interesting that still the craving is satisfied. So there is an end to that then, or it like subsides?
It's usually oblivion.
Okay.
It's usually oblivion or a bender for multiple days until your body and mind crash and give out.
So until you physically can't anymore.
Usually, I mean, not always, but usually. Usually that's when the craving would be set. And it's kind of like a mosquito bite. It itches, but you're like, man, whenever I itch these things, I itch them till they bleed. So I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to try to just not itch it.
But when you start,
and then when you start, you thought it itched before, but now it itches 10 times as much. And you end up just scratching it until it bleeds. Again, just like every time. And even though you said you weren't going to, and you're like, dang it, man, why do I always do that? Because it itches 10 times more once you start. And you're experiencing this reaction and this urge to scratch it until it doesn't itch anymore, So kind of like that. It's
fascinating to, that something can take over to that extent. I guess that's the potency of whatever it is, then mixed with that predisposition. So is that a pretty universal thing that people will kind of just sort of keep going until they can't? Is that how it normally manifests? Or?
Yeah. And so what makes someone an addict, also is you don't have to have a crazy story. You don't have to have been to prison 7 times or slept in dumpsters and eaten rats out of dumpsters and killed 5 people or whatever. Like, that's not what makes you an addict. It's that you have little control over how much you take once you get started. And even when you honestly want to quit and stay quit entirely because of the consequences that have racked up, you find that you can't. So we're great quitters, never could stay quit. I quit 150 times, that I'm just making up numbers here, but I was always quitting. All right, it's my last one.
Yeah.
I mean it.
So was there something in you then that recognized that it was kind of messed up in some way? Or because obviously you said you enjoyed it, you wanted to keep doing it, but there was something in your mind that was like, I shouldn't be doing this, or this is bad for me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, after that first night, I went on, I don't think for 7 years I was ever sober for 30 days straight.
Wow.
After that first night, good kids, straight A's, great family. All the trauma I've experienced, which is quite a bit, was during that using career, because I went to dark places with bad people and did horrible things and was a part of things and experienced lows and, I mean, that was all horrific, but that was like on this journey.
Yeah.
In the darkness, not what led me to it, just for me, And so you love it. You have this abnormal reaction, and none of this is an excuse. You just have to realize that it's real, that it's true. You have to eventually say, like, part of the reason why I can't dabble is because I still have that physical reaction. So I have to be completely sober.
Yeah.
Not because I think having a beer is bad or I don't want a glass of wine with my spaghetti once a month or something. It's because that's what happens. That part is the last remaining part.
Yeah.
The untreated part that is still in me. That's why I have to be completely sober, right?
Yeah, the physical part.
And so this is the progression of it. You love it. You lose control over how much you do. Once you get started, it doesn't make sense. It's like, you get 100 pills and you're going to do 10 a day for 10 days. And you've decided that's a good financial move. I'd like this to last for 10 days. This is my plan. And then in 2 or 3 days, they're all gone because you just start going nuts, and you're like, oh man, why? Because you just have this desire to do more, right? But you love how it makes you feel. And so eventually, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, you develop this mental obsession and this insanity. So part of this is mental illness. It's
Yeah.
like if you had somebody with OCD, say they had to put their cup down 50 times,
Yeah.
or until they were satisfied with how the bass hit the table, or they flip the lights on and off 25 times before they get in bed, right? And
Yeah.
you look at this and you go, first of all, this is ridiculous. Second of all, why don't you just stop, dude?
Yeah.
Like just,
Yeah.
can you just not do that? Have you ever thought about that? And a lot of people, that's their approach to the addict is
Yeah.
like, just
walk away.
Just stop,
Yeah.
brother. If you love your family, if you don't want to go to prison, if you don't want to almost die, if you don't want to ruin your health, if you care about your future and your finances, just
Mm-hmm.
for the love of God, stop doing this, And it's like, that's a great idea. That's pretty obvious.
Well, it's like the
I mean?
people who would say, to go back to the scripture of like, God doesn't give us a spirit of fear, or like, they quote the scriptures about anxiety or whatever, and
Yes.
they say, well, you shouldn't be anxious because God doesn't, he gives you what you need to overcome anxiety. And you're like, okay, well, if that was that easy, then that would be great. But it's, it's not just as simple as saying like, do not be anxious for anything like that. Yeah, it sounds good to say that to someone, but it doesn't. It doesn't help.
It's more like saying, I mean, it says what it says, but it's like, I don't want you to be anxious. I have what you need.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
quoting these sort of things that people to like, or saying like, you got to stop. You got to get your life together. Like they'll agree with you, I'm sure, in the moment. Yeah, I do have to stop, but there's something that's broken in the pathway to to getting there.
So there's this obsession that's not unlike obsessive compulsive disorder, really. I mean, it's this driving, nagging, you can't stop thinking about it. And no matter how much you love your family,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it does is it overrides your basic instincts of survival. Right? So for me, in the end, especially, or pretty quickly, but like for the last few years, it was more powerful than my desire for food, water, shelter, or self-preservation, or love, or relationships, or keeping anything in my life that meant everything to me, that was a part of who I was, or anything of substance in my life. So it's not like I was just like, everybody else should be out there working and having fun, and I don't care about life. I just like to party and be a loser and get high and feel good all the time. It's like, nobody's talking to you anymore. I'm 60 pounds underweight. I almost died this week already and had my life saved at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I have nowhere to live anymore. I've sold all my possessions. You can live off a couple packs of ramen a week, and water's free in this country, you know, and you can just go into a bathroom at a gas station and splash some water on your face. None of this is fun or glamorous, or am I enjoying any of this at this point?
Yeah.
You can see the bondage, like you can see the sickness.
Mm-hmm.
So you make a sincere desire. I mean, I literally one time flushed $1,000 worth of drugs down the toilet. I didn't want to sell it. I didn't want to give it to anybody. I knew it was evil. I wanted it off the face of the planet. I didn't want it anywhere near me. I had been up for a few days and had sort of a mental breakdown, an anxiety attack, and I hated myself. Why am I doing this? I never want to do this again. Actions speak louder than words was ringing in my head. So I'm like, that's it. I'm flushing this down the toilet.
Yeah.
It was less than 24 hours later. I was looking for something to take to the pawn shop to see if I could get $50 to go get more.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, you mentioned like overrode. No. Yeah. If it overrode your desire for those sort of basic things of life. So, if there's some examples you could share of like some things, like what ways did that manifest in your life? So like, were you homeless? Were you, you mentioned about going to the hospital and having your life saved. Like, is that a common occurrence? So how did that look like in your life?
It's happened a few times, like overdose or need a stomach pump, or just so high and pale and wobbly that people get scared and take you and drop you off. And so yeah, that's happened several times. But I lived in a homeless shelter in Jacksonville for 9 months, about. And, but I got there because I was I was court ordered to a rehab for 6 months, and I got kicked out of there for bad behavior, let's say. And and it was towards the end of the 6-month stint, but I didn't have anywhere to go at that point.
That's kind of crazy in its own right, though. That rehab is somewhere where people go to get help, and then they can kick people out. I know they kind of have to protect others, but it's still like,
I know,
what a situation.
Well, that's why for some people it's just like, what are we gonna do with you, dude?
Yeah,
there's nowhere, there's nothing, there's nowhere you can be.
What can you do? Yeah.
You're not safe to be around. You're out of your mind. You don't do anything you say you're gonna do. And but so I ended up having nowhere to go, and was at this homeless shelter. But other than that stint, which was just a pure, true homeless shelter in inner city Jacksonville, where I lived, I wasn't homeless in the traditional sense. I've slept outside a few times. I've lived in garages at sketchy, like, little trap houses. I've had horrible places that I lived in that I was evicted from, and kind of bounced around and in a car and with other people, or stuff like that. But that was my only time being. I was homeless, and I was at this shelter for 9 months. But
what was it like at the shelter to be there? Like, how did you feel when you were there? Did you feel like you were getting somewhere with the treatment or whatever, or like, was it just you were just there to get a roof over your head?
It was horrible. I hated that place. I've been to jail several times. Never been to prison as an inmate.
Yeah.
We go in now and do ministry. But I've been to jail in, I think, 5 different counties in Florida for short periods of time. And I think it was worse, because 80-90% of everyone there has been incarcerated. So it's a similar population. It was all men, which makes a society weird.
Sure,
that's part of what makes prison weird. There's no women or children. There's no balance.
Yeah.
It's just all grown men everybody that's around you. It's very odd for, functioning in society. And nobody wants to be there. And everybody's life is a dumpster fire. And there's also no guards, which sometimes makes things worse. But there was no structure. There was no weapons checks. There was no drugs checks. So people are getting stabbed in there. People are getting attacked in the bathrooms. Wow. People are coming in and getting high. People are coming in off the street with urine and feces all over them. It was a madhouse.
Yeah.
It was a wild jungle. And it was disgusting. The food was gross. You're eating, slightly expired food that some local grocery store can get a tax break for saying they donated it to you. And you work with whatever you got. You got some guy that says he worked at a Waffle House 10 years ago who lives there with you,
he's
a fellow homeless man, and so he's the cook. And he's like, well, we got expired tuna fish, green beans, and tomato sauce in the truck today. So we're just going to mix that all together and put some salt and pepper on it and heat it up, and it's like, all right.
Doesn't sound fun.
some goulash,
Yeah.
It was horrible. So something happened to me there, in a long line of many different things that had happened to me. And this is actually what makes me so passionate about how I present the solution to people, which is God. And a spiritual program of action, which is discipleship, but like not passive discipleship. Like, you got to get into this stuff, and you got to move, and you got to do it like your life depends on it, not just like your spiritual development depends on it.
Yeah,
which you might think you have time and isn't really urgent and can happen as it happens. There's some stuff that needs to be done, some wreckage that needs to be cleared, right? Because what happened to me was I was there, and like I said, I don't think I was ever sober for 30 full days in a row during this 7-year period. Even at facilities, I would manage to get high.
Yeah.
And while I was there, this guy that I met, very interesting dude, as I was also, but he got us some over-the-counter medications, right, that were supposed to make us trip out. And I was down to do anything to change my state and make me feel some sort of euphoria or buzz.
Yeah.
I had never done this particular thing.
Yeah.
Not good stuff. It was gross, right? So we take this over-the-counter medication, and I tell him, I'm like, look, bro, I'm a tank. I'm a beast. That whatever you think I'm supposed to take to
Double
get this
it,
effect, let's double it. So I take like 2 whole boxes of this stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Which is like 4 sleeves. And I had some sort of bizarre delayed reaction to it. So it hit him within like 30 minutes to an hour, and he's coming over to me. Hey, bro, are you feeling it? And I said, no, I told you I should have taken more, I told you I'm an animal. And what happened was later that night, in the middle of the night, like a few hours later, because we took it in the evening, but we're in this room, this gymnasium filled with 150 guys, and I'm on my bunk, on the middle of a 3-high bunk. So it's like akin to being on the top bunk of a normal 2-high bunk. And I wake up and I'm completely out of my mind. The exit sign is wiggling, and I hear all of the snoring and apnea and just coughing in the room. It sounded like a jungle of frogs, demonic frogs or something. I mean, I'm just freaked out, right? And I fall over off that bunk, second bunk, onto the ground, smack, and start army crawling to the bathroom. And there's a whole story there that is sad and scary and kind of funny too. But I end up overdosing essentially on some level, and throwing up until my stomach was completely empty, and thinking I was going to die, and being terrified. And I'm in this weird bathroom, and I'm like, you don't want to be weak in this place. You don't want to be, you're vulnerable at this point. If you're laying around on the floor throwing up, like anything could happen to you, right? And so I'm freaked out, and I have this moment where I'm like, I can't die, which is a pretty normal thing to think if you think you might die, right? I don't want to die. And I started talking to God, and I started saying, Lord, I don't want to leave my family like this. I don't want the story that my mom and dad have to tell is, well, our son was a good boy. He was a good boy. He had a big heart. He was great. Well, but he passed away. Well, how did he pass away? Well, he died naked from a drug overdose on the bathroom floor at a homeless shelter at 19 years old, but he was a good boy. And it's like, that's horrible, And so I'm having this moment. I'm like, if you allow me to survive, God, I will never do this again.
Was this different to other times you'd resolved to?
It was very intense and very real and very scary, and I meant it when I said it. And I did end up getting high for another 2.5 years, So this was not the end of my story. Yeah. But what happens is, throughout the course of addiction, you smack down. There's a myth that if you're not done yet, you just haven't reached your bottom.
Okay.
That's a myth, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because there is no bottom other than death.
Sure.
That
ends, keep going lower and lower.
That ends this thing. And it's either lower and lower, and it's just again and again and again. But what you do get is you get these little windows of opportunity. It's God's grace. Yeah. Is what it is, whether people realize it or not. You get this moment where your cage is rattled, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I almost died, or my whole family's not going to talk to me again, or I almost got arrested, or something crazy happened. You're so physically and mentally exhausted and depleted that maybe you just say, all right, just take me in. Just take me into some kind of rehab or treatment center or something. You have this sort of like give up moment where you're just like, and you have this window of opportunity, and what you do while the window is open matters more than anything, because that window will close. The insanity will return, and the lie that, oh, I'm so miserable sober, or that this will make it better even though it's only always made it worse, or that this time will be different. I'll switch to one of the substances that I don't like as much, and maybe I can maintain, or this time I'll just do a few, or I'll set a budget, or I'll whatever kind of insane lie the enemy or yourself speaks to your flesh. It's a combo of the two, and then you do it again, and then you have the abnormal physical reaction, and you're off to the races until you're destroyed. But when that window's open, and somebody might actually be willing to do whatever it takes to get better, if somebody would just show them the way.
Yeah, that's the opportunity.
That's your opportunity, right? So while that window was open, I didn't know that. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew I was terrified and scared, and I survived, and I slept the whole next day on my bunk and felt like my head was going to split in half. And I was just like having people, one or two guys that were nice to me, bring me some Gatorade, and I'm just sitting there in bed like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to die last night. That was insane.
Yeah.
I was in another universe. And so I was scared, and they would bring this school bus to the shelter on the weekends. And they would take people to church, right? If you wanted to go to church, because this place was owned by a big fancy church on the other side of town. It was a mission, and they funded it.
Okay.
And so I said, I'm going to church, man. I need to.
Yeah,
I just had this like instinctive, innate thought inside me that like I need God.
Yeah.
I need the creator of the universe. I don't need just another therapist or counselor or treatment center or medication even. Not that I'm against meds or that they're bad or anything but I just had this innate feeling that whatever I'm up against is so much more powerful than me and every other person or strategy that I know, that like if the Lord doesn't save me, I'm done, right? And so I had that thought. So I go to the church, and I ended up getting baptized. I ended up in not probably with the right mindset.
Yeah.
It was more just like a surrender moment, which is good. That's part of baptism. But it was more just like, all right, God, I got to do something crazy here. And I'm just going to jump in the water, and you can dunk me. And that's going to do something powerful, and I'm going to be okay after this. And I'm going all in,
Yeah.
So I had part of it, but I was missing part of, what baptism is and what I was thinking it was. But, and after that, instead of showing me the way, which actually I ended up finding, not saying that I don't worship this stuff. I know God can do whatever he wants. He can do it through the church. He can zap you sober in a worship session.
Yeah.
He can do it in many different ways, but I ended up finding the tool of the 12 steps, which marched me through these very biblical actions that ended up helping me eventually. But in that moment, they said, look, hey, there's only one step. Just give your life to God, which sounded really good. And in essence, that's what you're doing. But okay, what do I do next? Nobody discipled me. Nobody sponsored me. Nobody showed me. Nobody walked with me.
Sure.
And I'm not blaming what happened next on them. It was all, I have to own that I kept getting high, right? But I get baptized. I come back to the shelter. And all I would do after that was I would say some prayers in the morning when I woke up. I would say some prayers at night when I went to sleep. And I would read a proverb every day. Because, there's 31 proverbs and there's like one every day of the month. You can do that whole thing, which is great idea for anybody. But that was it. I didn't like take a look at things. I didn't confess anything. I didn't admit anything. I didn't like do any personal like inventories on myself. I didn't decide to go and share my testimony with others or to make amends to people. I didn't do anything. I just sort of was like, God, help me. I'm going to read a proverb every day and rub the genie lamp and ask you to help me. And as I've actually heard Pastor Mark say before, and he wasn't even talking about addiction. He was just giving a sermon. He said, a lot of y'all are leaning on a shovel and praying for a hole. And God says, I gave you 2 arms and a shovel. You might have to participate in that. I'm providing the way.
Yeah.
You got to put in some work. You got to make a move, action, right? So that's why when somebody is ready and is willing and actually wants to get better, the biggest tragedy to me is that nobody shows them how.
Yeah, they can't find.
They can't find. They don't understand how to surrender or what to do or be willing to do what. And I'm extremely passionate about being there in those moments for people to walk through that with them, to show them like something that can actually work. And we may get to it on another day, but I can explain what that is and maybe even explain the spiritual side a little bit more of like the bondage, the idol worship, the moral depletion that plays into the spiritual side of like, I'm not okay. I don't have a drug problem. I have a drug solution to an existence and spiritual problem that I've developed as I've been worshiping this idol and living in the flesh
Yeah.
that's become so bad that now I'm not okay
Yeah.
sober,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And so we can get into all that,
Yeah.
but
I think, it's inspiring to me to hear kind of your story of coming through that. And, it's, I guess to finish, like, for this episode, and hopefully we can do another one soon to talk about some of the stuff you just mentioned. But, what would you say to someone at the minute who is in a hopeless state or just looking for something to grab onto, to, like, maybe they're at the low or getting close to the low, or maybe they just see some of the things you talked about? What would you say to them in that moment? Because you've been through it and kind of some avenues of how to at least, find some help.
I think finding a good 12-step meeting would be really, really awesome, but there's a lot of weird stuff out there, and this is a Christian podcast, and so I would say if you're gonna do that, try to find a Christian sponsor and also go to church and read your Bible, which is the ultimate actual, word of God. And just don't lose hope that anything is possible with God, but that he may not just swoop down and do it for you. And you need some serious discipleship and a plan of action. And none of the things that you're going to do to get better are going to have to do with fighting your addiction. They're going to have to do with getting closer to God, and he fights that battle for you. And the victory is in him, or it's not at all.
Yeah.
Because when I did get sober, and I won't make a long story out of this as we wrap it up, God saved me. I did not learn my lesson. I did not overcome my struggle. I did not finally amass enough willpower. I did not try harder. I just was willing to do something. And when somebody pointed me to God and to Jesus and to a process of action and discipleship, I experienced a miracle. And so when people go, "Oh man, I'm so proud of you. You're coming up on 17 years sober and clean, and oh, that's so incredible." I mean, that's a really nice thing to say. What else are you supposed to say? And I just say thank you. I used to not be able to take a compliment because I thought I was such a piece of garbage. I would go, "Oh, I'm proud of you." Stop. Now I just say thank you so much, But I mean, I'm just thankful. I'm grateful. And I think this is how I think about it. I think, like, if you were a prisoner of war and you had tried to think your way out of the trap, you had tried to mite your way, physically dig and pry your way out of the trap, and you're being mistreated, and you may never see your family again, and you don't know when it's going to end. And if there was a way out, you would still take it. But you're convinced that if somebody doesn't come and get you, you're probably going to die there at the hands of the enemy. And it's not going to be pretty. And it's just a horrible place to be. And then one night in the middle of the night, pop, 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 locks are popping, flashbangs are going off. Oh, you're exhausted and dehydrated. You have no idea what's going on. And there's a SEAL team at your gate and they bust your cage open and they say, "Come on, let's go." And you can't even stand up.
Yeah.
And so they pick you up and put one arm over each shoulder and say, "Move, move, move. We got you, brother. You're safe. You're going home. You're going to see your family. We got you." And they get you on the chopper and they're flying you home and they say, "How do you feel?" Would you say, "I'm just so proud of myself"?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I'm so glad I figured that out, the solution.
Yeah, I'm so glad I finally got that out of there.
Yeah.
You would just say, "I'm just so glad you came and got me." Right?
Yeah.
And God came and got me, man. He proved to me, you can't tell me he's not real. He's more real than my hand here. Like it's not a placebo effect. When you've tried and he sent you down a journey where you've tried everything the world has to offer, because I went to 5 treatment centers and 2 outpatient rehabs and tried different medications and talked to psychologists and psychiatrists and had therapy and moved and changed my phone number and tried exercise and smoothies and yoga, and that's all great stuff. But none of it fixed the problem. None of it broke the bondage and broke me free, but he did. And I would just say, surrender all, but find somebody that can, either from the 12-step fellowship or someone that's has lived experience in your church in this, that can walk you through an intensive program of action and get quickly as you can to sharing your testimony to others and helping them. Don't wait till you think you're some kind of guru with years sober. Start quickly
Mm-hmm.
trying to help others.
Yeah.
And there is a way. God makes a way. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And, I appreciate you, being willing to have this conversation, because I'm sure there's things that are tough for you to share. But it's, beautiful to see the journey you've been on. And, let's do this again, and let's go through some of those practical steps in a bit more detail. But I really appreciate you being willing to sit down and join me. And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
And thanks to everyone who tuned in to watch. I appreciate everyone who, subscribes and follows and leaves comments below. So thank you again for watching, and hope to see you again soon on another episode of The Two Things You Shouldn't Talk About.